Hello and welcome everyone to the 2021 Toronto International Film Festival and this very special digital Q&A for the world premiere screening of Charlotte. My name is Ravi Srinivasan and I'm one of the programmers here at the festival. It's my great pleasure to welcome our special guests for today's conversation, producer Julia Rosenberg, directors Eric Warren and Tahir Rana, and two-time Academy Award nominee and the voice of Charlotte, Kiera Knightley. Hello, everyone, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Hi.
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 Look, this is such a powerful story and undoubtedly tragic, but there's so much here to be inspired about in the story of Charlotte Salomon. And Julie, I want to start with you. You're the driving force behind this film. And there's, you look in the credits, so much support behind this project. I'm wondering if you can talk about just, the journey to get this completed, how you first came across Charlotte's story and just, how difficult was this process to bring together?
It was very long and intense, but not difficult in that everyone was convinced by wanting to bring the work of Charlotte Salomon to the world. The idea popped into my head about 10 years ago on a morning run that Charlotte drew her life story. So I needed to produce an animated film of her life story. Never having worked in animation, I just threw myself into it and we developed the script for about 5 years and then approached every single financier that we could think of and they all came on board. And then Tahir and Eric came on board. And then we just needed to find our Charlotte. And that is when Kiera came on board. And here we are.
Kiera, I want to ask, this, I just imagine you have, stacks of scripts waiting to be read by you and your team. Can you talk to us about, what stood out for you in this story and this script and really what, drew you to the project?
Yeah, I think I knew absolutely nothing about this story. I'd never heard of Charlotte Salomon before. And so I read the script and I just thought it was an extraordinary and very beautiful and very moving story, and then the idea that they were doing it as an animated feature, I just loved. I was really interested in the idea that you can tell this kind of a story in that kind of a way. And I really felt like, given that she was such a phenomenal artist, it felt like a very appropriate way, to try and tell her life story. So I think I was just excited by the challenge of it. And also, I found it so interesting that you can have a story that is so, obviously completely tragic. And yet there's this sort of incredible life spirit at the center of it. So I think just sort of getting the opportunity to try and kind of vocally convey her energy was something I found very exciting.
Yeah, I'm wondering what are the differences to prepare for this type of role, this type of character, as a voice actor, what's your preparation like compared to, when you're doing a live action film?
Well, I think you think about the character in the same way. You try and kind of figure out what makes her tick. And what was lovely was actually having her work. So life or theatre. Julia very kindly sent me the book, which is it's just so beautiful, and so kind of having that to sort of go on was great. And then the added bonus of not having to learn my lines. I just had the script right there in front of me with all the notes of like what I thought was important and how I wanted to do it just right there. I thought, oh, this is great, So no, I think it was just very interesting. It was they were filming me when they were doing it to help with, I think, Julia, if I got this right, to help with some of the animation. So we did kind of play the scenes as if we were being filmed, so that we could help and that performance was there. And then really it was sort of, it was very similar to doing a normal film, just with the script in front of you.
Right. That's really fascinating, actually. And Eric, so I want to, Eric and Tahir, Eric, you have done, a big animation film before, previously Ballerina. And I'm wondering, can you talk about your attachment to the project and what's the collaboration process like between you and Eric? I'm sure between you and Tahir, sorry. I'm sure there's a lot of folks in the audience who are, quite interested in how that works as animator director.
Well, that was quite simple. We met each other, and Tahir had a very big background in animation. So what we did in a very simple way. We say, okay, you know what? Let's split a little bit. You drive a little bit more than me the animation, and I'm going to try to work on the few editing stuff and the angles and all this kind of aspect, and also the storytelling in a way. That, as you said, you mentioned Ballerina, and this kind of movie is very different. This is not for kids, but I mean, the story was so moving, as Kiera just said, that we really wanted to focus on the character and try to avoid every artificial tools that we use normally in animation. So that was really all about telling the story of a character.
And to hear, a bit of a hometown story. You went to film school nearby Sheridan, and this is your first feature film as a director. Can you talk to us about, your experience and the animation and the artwork in the film it's so detailed and it's quite stunning. I'm wondering if you can talk about, your creative process to really nail down this world.
It was super interesting. I've been in animation for my whole career, and usually I would say for North America, animation, especially feature animation, is usually reserved for talking animals and magical bunnies and that kind of stuff. But in this case, we were able to use a medium like this for a purpose to tell a story that's completely different. And what's really great about Charlotte's story is she's an artist, and it just seemed really natural that you could kind of take her medium and explore it visually and tell a story in a sense that deserves to be told with moving visual images. And part of the collaboration with Eric, Eric's not telling the full story. There's a lot of punching matches and wrestling and some black guys. No, Eric and I really, it was a really interesting pairing because Eric has a really strong sense of story and storytelling. So I think I was able to sort of support that with kind of driving the animation and the visual look. And it ended up becoming a really perfect tandem. And I think what's on the screen really shows that that collaboration worked really well.
One aspect that really separated this story from others in the sort of genre or topic, as you will, is that it's not just about the external conflicts that were affecting Charlotte and her family. There's a lot of internal struggle that is reflected here in terms of family and mental health and trauma as well. And I'm wondering, was that an aspect of Charlotte's story that you really wanted to hone in on here? Maybe we can start with Julia and then hear from the others.
It's a dramatic story that requires full-bodied characters, and Charlotte's story is not one only of being a victim of circumstance. It's really about her agency and her vision. And like most good stories, be them animated or live action, we're really drawn to the inner workings of a character, the character's imagination and hopes and dreams. So I'm not sure a film just about Charlotte painting during wartime as a refugee, though interesting, would have merited everyone's attention in the same way.
Right. And, was there anything from the original text that you had to, sort of leave out, or was there anything that, you wanted to add, but, just had to sort of focus in on certain aspects that the audience might not be, sort of privy to?
Are they seeing this before or after?
Sorry, the audience would have seen the film before.
Okay, thank you. There's in Life for Theater. So the Eric Weatherford, who first grappled with the material, he made some really great choices in terms of adapting the underlying work, like most screenwriters do. And Charlotte, at one point, imagined that her stepmother and Wolfson were in love, or Wolfson was in love with her stepmother. So that's one example. But our film draws not only from Charlotte's self-representation in life or theater, but also biographical details. So we had to sort of, as few as we had. So there were some, we did adapt it. We didn't include everything, but we always did our best to represent what we understood to be true. And we worked very closely with the Charlotte Salomon Foundation. One quick note, Charlotte called it Life or Theater. So even she was playing with the notion of truth, and that needs to be put out there.
Right. You know, I imagine the film was made, you know, in the last obviously couple of years during the pandemic, but I'm wondering for the audience members, you know, was that aspect, you know, was it easier to sort of complete this film during that time, or, you know, what were the challenges or the major difficulties to finish this film, you know, in such a
I can speak to that. I think that's a really good question. Yeah, we absolutely. I would say maybe closer to the tail end of the production. We all of us had to go to this remote model, and you know, it was almost overnight. One thing that's great about animation versus if you're on a live action set is that we do work with computers, and you know, animation these days is all more or less digital. It's not as hand drawn as it was before. So it was a Herculean effort by the production staff, and one line producer in particular that we have is just great. We were able to almost over a weekend just kind of close up shop, as it were, put everything on a server and have everybody work from home. Was it easier? No. What you really want when you're working in any kind of a artistic endeavor like animations, you want that collaboration, looking over the shoulder, sort of describing. It's almost with animation, a lot of it is, we call it acting with a pencil. That's what animators are doing. So for me, as a director, I like to kind of tell them to do this and do that. Kiera had mentioned before that we recorded her while she was doing her lines, and that was actually really helpful reference as well. So in the absence of kind of being able to like speak directly and pantomime movements, we relied on some video of not only Kiera but some other actors that we'd recorded. So we found a way to kind of do it, and you know, in the end, the audience wouldn't be able to tell that it was a lot harder once we went to the work from home model. But you know, I think it speaks to, and Julia said this during the time, like, of course, you know, this would happen during the making of a Charlotte Salomon movie. She went through so very much in her lifetime, and you know, there were some slings and arrows that we had to kind of work through, but in the end, it was the perseverance of everybody involved that really saw the movie through, and the results on screen, in my opinion, were spectacular. So I'm really happy with how it ended up, especially considering the tribulations that we went through.
There's also, you know, there are fun anecdotes like Kiera's ADR. That was sort of fun. I was literally in this room and Kiera was in that room, and we had our studio in London set up a remote. I mean, I wasn't there on the ground with you, Kiera. What was it like to have?
No, I mean, it was hilarious because it was during the first lockdown in England, and I had a very small baby, and a 6-year-old. And so we had to do it. We did it in 2 sessions during the baby was still napping for 2 hours a day. So I was like, okay, she's asleep between 1 and 3, which means it's going to be quiet enough. So we can do it between 1 and 3 in 2 sessions. And very fortunately, like, my husband is a musician. So where I'm sitting now is our garage, but he's got baffling, like sound baffling up. So I was like, look, this could work because we actually have sort of a studio, you know, and he's quite good with all the technical stuff. So he was there with the microphones, and then he ran upstairs to look after the 6-year-old, and the baby was asleep and I was running down, you know, but we got it done and it actually worked. So it was kind of miraculous.
It worked beautifully, and so we were feeding the video into her, and I remember at one point someone was walking around upstairs and we're like, of course people walk in a house, that's what they do. Yeah. So it reminded me of how insane it was that we were finishing a film from our homes, basically.
Wow,
Yeah,
that's go ahead, Eric.
I
Yeah.
have a. Oh, sorry. I have another anecdote on the fact that the impact it can have, because there is one thing with acting and the distance and everything, and there's another thing which we were supposed to be in Belgium for the all the color working and all those elements. And actually, we stayed in Toronto, or I was in Montreal, and working with Belgium, and they were sending me some pictures, the work they were doing. And I was, in the beginning, I was like giving notes saying, "Oh, it's too bright. Turn it a little bit darker and everything." And I think after 1 week, they started to say, "We have an issue because Eric wants to do a very dark movie." And actually, the thing was just that my monitor was not exactly this, with the same
Calibrated.
colors or calibrated as they were. So Julia had to order for me a special monitor so that it can be delivered to me, and I started to have exactly the same calibration as the Belgium team. So those things, are very, very special when you do something like that. We didn't imagine that in the beginning.
But it's incredible because we finished the film, and to speak to what Tahir said, Charlotte had a lot of trouble just finding paper during the war to draw on, and so we had some little problems, but we got through them and can recount them anecdotally. All's well that ends well.
Right. No, and it's quite
right.
an accomplishment. So congratulations. I'll get you all out on this last question, and for Julia and Kiera. It's such an inspiring young female story, and I'm wondering, for any teenage girls who are going to see this film and who want to pursue arts and follow their dreams even though they're told not to. What do you hope that that women come away from with this film? Oh, Julia, we'll start with you.
That they follow their passions and they are encouraged, they can find ways to encourage themselves, and if they find making things meaningful, that they pursue it wholeheartedly.
Great. Kiera?
Yes, I think Julia just said it all there. I mean, ditto. Yeah, make sure your spirit survives. Keep going, and make sure your spirit survives.
I think that's great advice, and I hope that a lot of young women do see this film, because it's quite an important story that's finally being told on the big screen, and I think it's super inspiring. So I want to thank Tahir, Eric, Julia, Kiera, of course, for joining us, taking time out of your day, and bringing us this beautiful film and this incredible story. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.